Yo everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a review on two brand new products by Makeup Revolution, or Revolution Makeup, whatever you want to call them. It is the brand new Conceal and Hydrate Radiance Foundation and the new Conceal and Hydrate Radiance Concealer. This is following on from the success of their Conceal and Define concealer and foundation, both of which I've done videos on. I will link them both for you guys below just so that you can see a comparison if you want to understand how this is different or better or worse than the previous ones. Now, I bought mine both from Superdrug. The foundation is £9, the concealer is £7. Now, if you guys remember or have seen my video of the Conceal and Define foundation, you will know that my shade, or the two shades that I bought in that video, were F10 and F10.5. Now, unfortunately, there is no 10.5, which was actually my perfect shade. They had a 10.2, which means it's slightly lighter. Because I ordered this online, I actually bought the shade 11.2. Now, you will see that it is a little bit dark for me, and I have got a slight tan. September, I'm going to Canada, and it is hot out there, so I will again get darker. So that is the reason why, rather than buying the shade 11, which I would have probably just about got away with, I bought the shade 11.2. So like I said, on me it may be a little bit dark, but I've made it work. You will see in combination with the concealer as well as powder, because let's be honest, when you're brown and it's the summer, your skin tone will change at least a million times. So what are we supposed to do when it comes to foundations? You buy one that will match you at the time and then help you out for the following weeks until the winter starts and there's less sun around. For reference, in MAC I'm an NC40, but at the moment I'm probably an NC41, and this one is definitely one which is perfect for NC42 stroke maybe NC43. Now, for some reason Superdrug did not release the full range of shades. I think it's just because it's introductory, but altogether, according to Makeup Revolution's Instagram page, there are 50 skin true shades. Now, the difference with this foundation in comparison to the other one is that this one is called Conceal and Hydrate because it is a hydrating foundation. It is not the same as that one, which was more of a kind of demi-matte, more full coverage sort of foundation. And this one is also infused with hyaluronic acid. For those of you that don't know what hyaluronic acid does for your skin, or the benefits it has for your skin, it basically gives your skin an extra amount of moisture. Not a little bit, but a lot. So those of you out there that have got very dry skin, you will really like this foundation. This is definitely geared more towards people that have got drier skin that may not have liked that previous foundation. And this one, to me, is kind of like a semi-dewy sort of foundation. I personally actually really like it. It also says it's a hydrating formula, medium to full buildable coverage, radiant natural finish, and vegan and cruelty free. This is like the Conceal and Define. It is not 30 grams, which is annoying. It's 23 ml. It comes in the same large glass bottle as the last one. And like I said in that video, the size of the bottle is deceiving because it's thick glass. It makes it look as if there's a lot in here, but it's not 30 ml like I said. But the difference between this one and that one is this one actually has a pump applicator, whereas the previous one had a doe foot applicator, which was very similar to the Tarte Shape Tape, because the concealer as well as the foundation were definite dupes for the Tarte Shape Tape range. Makeup Revolution is known for making dupes, if that's what you want to call it, copies. I actually prefer the pump. It's a lot more easier, and I definitely think from a makeup artist point of view, a lot more hygienic. Again, that was something I mentioned with the previous one. Having to go in and out with the doe foot applicator onto your client's face is definitely not hygienic, so a lot of you will definitely prefer this pump that is very easy and user friendly. Now, I did give the Conceal and Define foundation a 9 out of 10. This one, 9.5 out of 10. I actually prefer this a lot more than the last one. Not that the last one was bad, but this one just trumps it by a little bit more. I actually really like the way that it sits on the skin. It makes me look flawless. It makes me look radiant. It definitely makes me look like my skin, but so much better. Whereas the previous one was a little bit more matte. This one is a little less matte and definitely much more natural skin-like. It's got a definite more runnier texture in comparison to the previous one, but again, like the previous one, it blends very easily, very evenly and very seamlessly into the skin. A little bit definitely goes a really long way. Even though it's described as medium to full, I would definitely say it's more towards the full coverage. It doesn't feel drying on the face, and even though it is injected with hyaluronic acid and it's a hydrating foundation, I've got normal to combination skin, bear in mind. I've got an oily T-zone, which happens to get oily about hour 8 to 12. This one held up really, really well. I have worn this in 25, 26 degrees when I've been in humidity, I've been in rain and everything, and it held up beautifully. Now, I do use a powder to mattify my skin anyway. I would recommend doing that regardless, because I think that all foundations need to be set so that it can really be locked into the skin. So personally, I find that this lasts a really long time, especially in the summer months. Obviously, I can't say how it will hold up in the winter because it has been released in the summer. I would say that it only started to crease around my forehead here area right here, and that was after about 9 hours. And I think that that more had to do with the fact that I use concealer around my eyebrows, and my concealer even right now is right here, just to tidy up my eyebrows, because everywhere else on my face had not moved and it was just this one area here, and I don't use concealer on the rest of my face. So this one would definitely last upwards to 15 to 16 hours before you have to even consider slightly powdering it down. If you've got dry skin, obviously it will last a lot longer. If you've got oily skin, bear in mind that you need to use a mattifying primer as well as a mattifying powder, and you would probably have to mattify your skin from 6 to 7 hours. So that's just something to bear in mind when it comes to different types of skin tone. I really like the coverage that it gives. I really liked how my skin looked. I've got pigmentation, hyperpigmentation, I've got scarring, I've got indented scars. It blurred out my pores beautifully. It covered all the redness and all the marks beautifully as well. And I just felt that it looked overall really lovely on my skin. And I really, really like and recommend this foundation. So what I'm going to do now is, before I move on to the review of the concealer, because I thought I may as well do them both in the same video because I bought them both at the same time. Let's get started on this one first. So the first thing I'm going to do is use this primer, which, believe it or not, is by Makeup Revolution, but it's all kind of rubbed off. This is their Blur and Prime primer. It's basically got like a slight orange hint to it. I personally quite like it, actually. Alright, now that that is done, let's let that settle on your face for a minute, calm down. That's why I've gone slightly red. So the brush that I'm going to use is this Morphe M439 Deluxe Buffer Brush. I use this for a lot of my liquid foundations as well as my stick foundations. It's very dense and it really helps to blend everything out nicely. Obviously, it's down to you what brush or beauty blender type beauty sponge you decide to use, but I personally like to always use brushes. I tend to use blenders for my under eye concealer. So again, just to reiterate, this is a little bit dark for my skin, only a little bit. It works out fine in the end, and over the couple of weeks as I start to get darker, which I already know I am going to be, it will match me a lot better. But for my winter shade, it'll be 10.5. That's just an FYI for those of you that are the same skin tone as me. This is just so that you guys can see it is a little bit warmer than my skin tone, but that's fine. So here's just half my face done, just so that you can see in terms of the coverage with one layer as well as the shade. If you can see, it matches my forehead a lot better because my forehead, like a lot of Asians, is a little bit darker than the rest of my face, and also because that, when I get a tan, seems to be the area that gets it first. But this is just so that you can see how lovely the coverage is. It's so pretty, barely needed any blending at all. It's got a strange smell to it, but I find that most of Makeup Revolution's products have got a really weird smell. All right, let's do the other side now. So here we are. This is one layer all together. Now you can see I look a little bit golden. That's the only way to describe it, is golden. But I love it. It looks so nice. I'm going to put a tiny little bit more on my problem areas, which are my cheeks. Just a little bit there, a little bit there. Again, it's completely down to you how much you want to apply. If you want more full coverage, go for it. I personally don't. I just like to give a little bit extra on my cheek areas where I push it in, and it works fine for me there. All right, I'm just going to let that settle on my face now before I review the concealer, and you will see, because this is one of the normal shades that I generally tend to use. When I mix this in with the foundation, it will lighten my foundation slightly and make it a little bit more workable for me as well, and not make me look so tanned. But can you see as well the way that my skin is naturally glowing? It's got that really nice hydration to it, but it still doesn't move around the face like some foundations can do as soon as the natural oils start to break out in your skin. But I think a lot of that has to do with me using a primer as well as a mattifying powder, so just bear that in mind. Otherwise you will probably start to get shinier a lot sooner than is necessary. Okay, now for my review of the concealer before I do the demo. The shade that I bought was C8. Now I will again link my review video to the concealers that I have below for you guys, where I show a wide range of ones which I bought. Why did I settle for this one? I don't know, I looked through my shades and I kind of decided that if this one was going to be a little bit deep for me, let me get this kind of shade to kind of counteract the goldenness of the foundation. But as far as I believe, it comes in the same amount of shade ranges as the Conceal and Define. Now, if you guys remember, or maybe you don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Conceal and Define concealer for many different reasons. However, the Conceal and Hydrate has surprisingly surprised me. I actually really like this concealer. It has, again, it's a radiant concealer with hyaluronic acid and acai, or it just says Radiance Concealer with hyaluronic and acai. So I don't know what acai is, some sort of fruit. And it is medium to full coverage. Now, where that one, the previous Conceal and Define, was marketed as a full coverage, I just didn't find it to be as full coverage, whereas this one is definitely medium to full coverage, buildable. It covers all my dark circles under my eyes, even though all things considered these days, because of my skincare routine, I actually don't have that much darkness under my eyes anymore. But regardless, this still covers them very nicely. It also they have also kept the doe foot applicator that they have for the concealer, which is fine. It has a little indent in the middle, which means that it contains more product, so you don't have to keep going backwards and forwards into the tube itself. This is also 0.5 ounces and 13 grams. And by all accounts, it's pretty much exactly the same in terms of the way it looks to the previous concealer. I really like it. It's hydrating. One of the reasons why some more full coverage concealers can irritate some people is that because they're so full coverage and because they're so matte, they really suck out the moisture from underneath the eyes. Now, a lot of people have got a lot of dryness underneath their eyes, which is the complete opposite to on top of their eyelids, which is where all the natural oils come through. So it can be really annoying for so many people. Then when you couple it with a setting powder to set the concealer, which by the way you need to do with any concealer, unless you've got super dry skin like the Sahara, most people need to set their under eye because it is a liquid product, and once it settles under the eyes and you have blended it, it will start to crease under the eyes like this one does. However, once I apply it and I set it with the luxury powder, the banana one by Makeup Revolution, which is what I'm going to demo for you guys today, it did not crease at all. It only got to about hour 14 and I noticed a crease had appeared under one of my eyes, and that is because I had the sun blasting on me in my car. I didn't have my AC on because I find AC too cold sometimes, and that is the only reason. And it was really humid in my car even with my window open, and that was the only reason it had creased. By the time I got to hour 16, that one crease was still there, but the rest still looked fresh. It looked awake, it looked nice, it looked natural, it didn't look awful, it didn't look horrible. And I think that this is a great concealer, and a lot of you will probably prefer this more than the Conceal and Define one if you had the same sort of experience that I did with that concealer. I actually give this a 10 out of 10. It does everything that it says on the tube. There's no surprises there. There's no additions. It's actually a really, really good concealer for those of you out there that do not want a matte concealer. It is a hydrating concealer, so you've got a little bit more movement, and you've also got a little bit more moisture under the eyes to stop them drying out, getting crepey and cakey, which is what can happen with other medium to full coverage concealers that have got a naturally matte or matte kind of finish. I tend to use a lot of matte concealers, so this is a really nice surprise for me. So I'm going to use a damp Real Techniques beauty sponge to blend it out. I have gone in a little bit heavily just for the purposes of the video, so that I can spread it out and then use my brush to kind of blend out the foundation, which you guys will see me do on the video. If you can see, this is a nice warm-ish kind of toned shade. It's got a little bit of peach in it, which is great for Asian and brown skin tones because peach generally works as a kind of a color corrector to help neutralize any darkness under the eyes. Then I am going to set it with this. Now I'm going to take my brush, because you can obviously see it's kind of stark and obvious. And then just get my beauty blender again just to kind of make it work better. Usual 5-second rule, but I may just add a couple of seconds to it. I can feel the powder sucking the moisture out under my eyes. Yes, I have gone in a lot more heavily than I normally do. That was accidental. It wasn't on purpose. But let's be honest, because it's a hydrating concealer, maybe leaving it in for a couple more seconds and adding a little bit more product than normal is okay, because at the end of the day, you don't want it moving around, especially if you've got oily skin. So I'm just going to leave this for the moment. Okay, now that that is done, you can see that my skin looks a lot better. It looks brightened under the eyes. And what I like about the concealer and the foundation is that they work really nicely together. They merge into each other, even though I'd already had the foundation sat on my face for a little bit longer than if I hadn't been filming this video. Now, the only thing that I need to do is to set my foundation. I'm going to use my Nabla Close Up Smoothing Pressed Powder. My shade is in medium, you guys can see, and you know that I love this powder. And it is a little bit pale, which will again work well with setting my face and just giving it that little bit of extra lightness, if that's a word, to make the foundation a little less warm on my skin, but at the same time setting it so that nothing moves. And there we go. Now, I know it may look a little bit matte at the moment, just a little bit. Just got to let it settle on the face. And then before you know it, it will look really lovely and beautiful on the face. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup, and then I'll be back to finish off the review, and just so that you guys can see how it sits on the skin, how nicely it looks once all the makeup is complete and put together. Okay, I'm back. The rest of my makeup is done. It all looks lovely. It feels lovely and soft. For reference, on my lips, I'm wearing one of the Revolution Pro Supreme Matte Lip Pigments, and this is in the shade Imagine. And now that you can see how everything sits, it looks really nice. It looks really soft, very natural. It is not matte, despite the fact that I've put obviously a powder on top. I mean, to be honest, the Nabla powder is not described as matte, but it's a setting powder. And now everything is still fresh. It doesn't feel tacky. It feels actually nice and smooth, very velvety feel to the skin. But overall, I think it looks really nice. You can see how I've pretty much made the color work for me as much as possible with the combination of mixing the concealer into the foundation. It all looks lovely. Under the eyes, looks soft. It's covered. It's got medium to full coverage. I can't see any of the darkness under my eyes whatsoever. But overall, I'm really happy with both of these products. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, make sure you subscribe. If you've got any comments or questions, ask me below. I'll be more than happy to respond as soon as possible. Other than that, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.